Hey guys, welcome yet again to Motoroids. My name is Amit. This is another day in Chennai. Very usual, very hot. And we have another new electric car. The market is getting swamped with all the new electric cars. I don't like them much. But this one is from BYD, which is one of the world's largest electric car makers. What is it? This is the EMAX7, which is a bigger version of the E6, which was very popular among the electric car buyers. And this is a bigger 6/7 seat version of the E6. But it's not just the number of seats, it's also the design. This looks much swankier. It has a new headlight design, and of course it has a longer wheelbase. And in terms of size, if you want to compare this car with its ICE counterparts, well, the XL6 and the Currents are its smaller alternatives, and the Innova Hycross is a bigger alternative. In terms of length, in terms of its width, in terms of its wheelbase, it's longer than the XL6 and the Currents. But the height of those cars is more than this one, and the Hycross dwarfs it in almost all the respects. Let's also talk about the design on this car. As you can see, it is quite a nice design. What BYD likes calling it is a dragon face, and it's a very neat design. I quite like it. It gets this satin silver plaque here with the BYD branding, very nicely done, very clean. And what is especially attractive is this 5-piece LED. These are projector units. So these 3 units here are the low beam, and inside you have high beams. These are high beam assist lights, so they are automatic and you don't really have to fiddle with the stock. So that's a great thing. It also comes with level 2 ADAS, so you can see the radar there. It comes with a very nice, probably one of the best cameras out there, and the front unit of that camera can be seen here. As you can see, you have some really nice chrome bits here, some piano black. All of these things give it a very nice, very clean face, and I really like it. Now coming towards the side, again, there are some really interesting bits. The 17-inch diamond cut wheels, and they're shod with 225 section tires. Both up front and at the rear you have discs. There are some really neat elements here. Just look at this ORVM design. It's quite nicely done. You have these mounted blinkers, and the way they have treated the ORVM in this aerodynamic fashion is quite nice. Also, if you look at it from the side as a whole, you get a floating roof. The greenhouse area has been completely surrounded by very nice chrome, and you have this space lettering here. This is the top variant, so you have a panoramic sunroof and roof rails. You have a shark fin antenna, and must I say, this looks very sleek from the side. It has a swooping roof line, and it is definitely a very nice looking MPV. But there is a drawback also, and the drawback is that, as I mentioned, this car is not very tall. It's shorter than even the XL6 and the Currents, which means that the headroom inside is slightly compromised. The ground clearance here is not the best in class. It's 170 mm, but what I really like is that chrome lining right under the sills. So looks wise, it's fantastic, but practically, as we'll see, there are some flaws with this car. Coming towards the rear, the design that you saw up front has been replicated at the rear as well, and the 5 pieces of LED lights that you saw up front are at the rear also. The blinkers are swipe out, and you get the BYD EMAX7 branding here, the BYD branding here. You have this chrome slat here, and of course the 360-degree camera sits here. The boot is powered, so that's of course fantastic. And with the tailgate up and all 3 rows up, you have 180 liters of boot space. If you put these seats down, you have 580 liters of boot space, and this is how it looks. This here is the illumination, and you have some more space to spare under this flap as well. This car also comes with a puncture repair kit. Now let's also have a look at what this puncture repair kit comprises of. And it has this 12-volt plug which powers this inflator, and you have this sealant. So you put this sealant in this little inlet, and you put this in the valve, and it seals the tire from inside once it inflates it, and that's how it works. And just in case you are wondering, no, there is no spare wheel here. So you will be stranded if you get a puncture, and that's exactly the reason why you get that puncture repair kit. You have no spare wheel here. Just a press of this flap and you have this charging port here. And let's also have a look at the bonnet and what's underneath. Now under the bonnet, as you can see, there is some insulation, And it is required because when this 8-in-1 controller is at work, and by the way, this is something that BYD boasts about, that they are the only manufacturer in the world to have this 8-in-1 controller. It is quite noisy and we really had to turn it off to stop the racket that was making. But I just wonder, with so much space vacant here, could this not have been turned into a frunk with maybe 200 liters of storage? I don't know. There may be technicalities, but there seems to be a lot of space available here for sure. What do you think? Now you'll get a home charger for free with this car, but if you get hold of a 115 kilowatt charger, you'll be able to charge it from 0 to 80% in just 37 minutes. And if you get a bigger 120 kilowatt charger, you'll be able to charge it from 20 to 80% in just 25 minutes. If you get the more regular 60 kilowatt charger, you'll be able to charge it from 20 to 80% in just 45 minutes. However, this is the Blade battery, and with 80% charge, you should be good for 400 kilometers, which would get you to multiple charging stations along the way, so the range is not all that much of a concern with this car. Also, I like the fact that the bonnet comes with hydraulic struts. All in all, just like the front, at the rear also you have a very sleek design, and the highlight here is this connected LED strip. And just like the front, you get this chrome treatment at the bottom as well. Overall, from the outside, it does look like a very premium, very sleek car, and I think it's time for us to get inside. But before that, let's also have a look at this really sleek looking key, and you have the lock and the unlock buttons along with the powered tailgate release and the car ready button as well. Let's get inside. This car also comes with an NFC card, and you can use that on the ORVM for entry as well as to turn the car on. So using this key, I can turn the car on. Just hold this key for a few seconds, and as you see, the mirrors are open now and the car will turn on. So you can turn the AC on and make sure that the car is ready for you to get in. Now, an important thing is that the doors here feel quite heavy, and unlike a few other cars where the doors feel flimsy, these doors feel quite nice and the car feels solid. You have this BYD branding here. And also about the materials, this one, unlike a few other more premium BYD cars, does not feel very premium. It feels a little bit more utilitarian because the quality of materials is not all that great. The pricing is also a little lower, but compared to the other MPVs which are ICE powered, I really think that the pricing is premium, and I believe that the quality of materials could probably have been a little bit better. However, here as you see, you have soft to touch material. This material is soft to touch. This is also soft to touch. However, this insert here is quite scratchy, and I really believe had BYD used a more premium inlay here, it would have made the car feel a lot more premium. This is one thing which probably could have been a little bit better. In terms of space, you have no dearth of loading area. You have a big space here. You can put a big 1-liter water bottle. And another great thing is that all 4 window buttons are one touch up and down. You also have some space here for your wallet. And another great feature is that, as you can see here, there's a connection for the AC vents so that there's no mist formation here, and you have very good visibility even when it's raining, and you can really have a good look at your RVMs. This car comes with a 6-speaker audio system which sounds rather nice, and you also have this puddle lamp here. Time now to see what else we have here, because there are quite a few features that we need to talk about. You have the bonnet release button here, and the electric boot can be released from here as well. So right now it's already released, and you have to keep it pressed if you want to bring it down. Also, while it's coming down and there is someone in the way, it is sensitive to that and it won't shut. It will go up to prevent any injury or accident. Now the accelerator and brake pedal are pretty basic, and you don't even have a dead pedal here. The 3-spoke steering wheel is nice. It's not too big, it's pretty good to hold, and it's both tilt and telescopically adjustable. Now let's also have a look at the instrument console, and on the left, as you can see, you have the kilowatt meter which shows you how many kilowatts are you expending while you're driving, and while the energy is getting recuperated, you'll see the needle coming down to the charge section, and here you have boost where you really go very fast. Now in the middle you have this 5-inch color screen, and you have various different modes here. So right now, as you can see, we have the average speed. On the left hand side you have the available battery, you have the range, you have the 2 trips which you can control using the button at the end of the stock, and here you have the trip A, trip B and the odo, and again cycling through the various different modes. It also shows you how many kilowatt hours you have used in the past 50 kilometers per 100 kilometer. It also shows you the average speed, and apart from that you have various different modes. You can choose from eco, normal and sport modes, And apart from that, you also have the recuperation mode shown here, which is either standard or larger. Larger means you have better recuperation, and standard means that you won't experience so much braking. On the right, of course, you have the speedometer. Now, since the ground clearance is not much, it's just 170 mm, entry and exit from the car is not all that difficult, and the seats themselves are quite slim. So for someone like me, they are sufficient, and the bolstering is also quite nice. But if you're of a bigger frame, then these seats can turn out to be quite slim. And for someone like Guru, who's sitting in the back seat, these seats might not be sufficient. They are also ventilated, although there are no physical controls. All the controls for the AC are on the screen only, although you can activate that screen using this button right here. The steering wheel, as I mentioned, is nice and chunky. It's small and it's D-cut. It has this piano black element as well as satin silver. On the right, you have the modes, the telephony and the audio controls, and on the left, you have the control for this rotating screen, as well as all the controls for the ADAS functions. Now, we have seen this screen earlier as well. It rotates. We have seen that as well. The touch is absolutely crisp and everything has been laid out pretty well. But the party trick here is the 360-degree camera, which in my opinion is probably the best up to this price and even beyond. Let's have a look at this camera and see how it can make such a tremendous difference to your driving. Now, to bring the camera on, you can use this button here on the steering wheel. And as you can see right now, we are using the transparent bonnet feature, which while you're driving off the road like we are right now, can be such a blessing. You can actually see where you're driving, and we have a small river right in front of us, and I can drive the car exactly to the point where the land ends. It's showing me everything around the car, and not just that, what's underneath as well. But what's more important is the clarity of the whole thing. It's really crisp. It's one of the crispest cameras that I have come across, and it's really, really impressive. I can turn the transparent bonnet off as well just by pressing this button, and apart from that, I have many views to choose from as well. You also get these really sharp guidelines, and they are very precise, so you can navigate your car very, very precisely. Apart from that, you have several other angles to look at the car as well. So this is the front view, this is the rear view with guidelines, this is the left view, this is the right view, this is the front wide view, this is the rear wide view, and this is the view of the front two wheels. So as you can see, this is an amazingly good setup and probably the best anywhere. If I really had to complain, I would want this car to be of the same color that my car is. It's white, while the car in the picture is grey. Now, apart from that, as I mentioned, all the AC controls are here, and if you want to control the seat ventilation, you have to go here, and you have two levels of flow, which you can control from here for both the front seats. Another great feature that this car comes with is the heating for the rear windshield as well as side mirrors, which is a feature that you don't see on many cars, but I really believe it's a fantastic feature to have. And the BYD EMAX7 comes with that amazing feature. This car comes with wireless Android Auto, Apple CarPlay, and you also get Spotify built into the system. Apart from that, you also have a micro SD card slot here, which you can put in, and then you can play your images or your music or your movies, whatever have you. And this screen here has been around on some other BYD cars as well, so let's not delve any deeper into it. Let's talk about the materials here, and the materials here on the dash are not of a very high quality. As I mentioned, this is hard plastic. This here is something that definitely could have been better. Only replacing this insert here could probably have elevated the feel of this car by several notches. Then you have this satin silver finish here. This material here is also hard plastic, although there is some soft to touch material here around the central panel. You have a wireless charger here, and I really like the fact that you have some more space to spare here. So if you're not using this space for wireless charging, you can use this for your wallet, cell phones, or whatever other knickknacks you have. And the armrest here also is quite comfortable and wide with a lot of space underneath. You have a Type C socket, a Type A socket, and a 12-volt power socket as well. You have two bottle holders, and then you have some space here for your wallet or cell phone. So storage here is not a problem. The glove box here is decently sized, but this is not cooled. Also, you don't have ambient lighting in this car. Another big miss is that you don't have electrochromatic mirrors, so you don't have auto dimming mirrors here. You have manual day-night mirrors, which I think is a big omission for a car which costs upwards of 30 lakh rupees. Now, another great thing about this car is this drive selector, and it's quite compact and premium. Feels quite nice. The throw is very small and it does feel like more premium than the segment that it represents. Generally, you used to get these kind of selectors in German cars, but now you have these selectors coming in more mainstream cars as well. Around this, as I mentioned, this is the air con control. This here is the front demister. You have the volume and power controls for the central screen. You can long press this button to turn the screen on or off. Alright, so it takes an enormous amount of time before it starts. You can turn the blind spot monitor on and off using this button here. Then you have the auto hold button, and this here is the energy recuperation mode, which is either standard or large, which is a rather weird name for energy recuperation modes, but that's how it is. And here you have the drive modes, which are eco, sport and normal. The material quality here on the central panel is pretty decent, and you have piano black all around. And I don't have any problems with this panel here because this is actually one place where you have soft to touch materials and some decent quality materials. I don't quite have a problem with the quality of the upholstery on the seats as well, and also the fact that they are perforated and ventilated. They look quite nice as well, but they are not very wide, and for people with a bigger frame, these seats might not be sufficient. It also comes with an electric sunroof, although it's a fixed panel and the glass panel is not going to move. So those who want to make their kids peep out of the sunroof, sorry, you cannot risk your kid's life in this specific car. You get vanity mirrors with illumination on both the sides, and I quite like the quality of the headliners. Also, you have a sunglasses holder here, 2 lights, and you can turn this third light on as well using this button. The seat belt is also adjustable for the front 2 passengers, and another great thing is that the seats are also powered for the front driver as well as for the passenger, 6-way adjustable. But this is one feature which is available only in the superior variant, which is this top end variant. There are differences between the premium and the superior variants, and all these differences can be seen on the screen right now. In terms of safety, this car comes standard with 6 airbags, and as everybody knows, the Blade battery is one of the safest out there. It also has undergone the nail piercing test as well as a heavy truck going over it. So BYD cars are generally known to be quite safe, and this one should not be any different. Time now to see how much space we have in the back seat, especially in the second and the third row. And that exactly is the purpose of this car, to be a people mover, and we really have to see as to how much space and comfort we have in the middle and the third row seats. Let's get there. Now the entry, just like the front, is not very difficult. The seats are not very high, and the material quality at the door panel at the rear as well is quite good. This is soft to touch, this is soft to touch, this is soft to touch, and this material, as I mentioned, is not all that great. But you have a lot of space in the door panels. You have some space here for a wallet as well, and to get in is easy. As you can see, there is ample knee room. There is ample room for my feet as well, but as you see, the seat height is not too great because of the battery pack, and to release some headroom, as the car is not very high, the seat height has been kept low, and that results in not getting sufficient support for your thighs. And if you're someone who's very tall, you'll probably complain about the thigh support on this car. Also, just like the front, the size of the seats is not all that great, although you do get this armrest here. And you also get these front seat backs which are scooped out and release some more legroom for you. You also have these additional pockets along with a magazine holder on both sides. The flow control for the rear AC vents, which by the way are placed in the roof, is here. You have some space to spare here where you can put your wallet. You have a type A and type C USB socket, 2 reading lights on either ends, and a coat hook as well. For a car this expensive, I would not have minded having blinds on the windows. That would really help. And as I mentioned, the seats definitely could have been wider and bigger. You can go with the 7-seat version also, where you won't get these captain seats. You will have a bench here with an armrest in the middle. Now, even with all that I've mentioned, the knee room here is not a problem, and even if you're someone taller, the space for your legs is not going to be a problem. The seats might be a bit of an issue. So as you can see, I have set the driver's seat to my driving position. and I have ample knee room. Now I'm going to get to the third row of seats and show you how much space we have there. Now to get to the third row, you have two ways. You can either drop the seat back down and move the seat forward, which releases a lot of space and makes it really easy to get into the third row. Or if you find that too cumbersome, you can just walk in and use the aisle to get into the third row. Now I have set the seat all the way back, it slid all the way back, and as you can see, even so I have some knee room left here. So if you move this seat slightly forward, let me just move this forward by just a small margin, you'd see that I have ample knee room here, and especially in the 6-seater variant where you have this space here to be used as an aisle, you have ample leg room and you can use this seat for short to medium journeys without any problem. You have sufficient space for your head also. You also have this strap here which you can use to recline the seats just by a very small margin. The thigh support is not all that great, and like all third row seats, these are not very high, so your knees are going to point slightly skywards. But I can use these seats for short to medium journeys without much problem. I'll also get my own AC vents and a cup holder, although there are no power sockets for the third row passengers. The third row seats are also 50-50 split, and now just for perspective, we have Guru sitting here, and as you can see, even with me having slid this seat slightly forward, he has a reasonable amount of knee room. What do you think, Guru? Are you comfortable?
Not too bad.
So as you can see, this car actually can seat 6, but not in utter comfort, because in the middle row the seats could definitely have been slightly better. The ride quality is exceptional though, and if you equate comfort with ride quality and suspension, then there is nothing to complain about. Before I get out, you also get these handles and this small quarter glass so that you don't feel too claustrophobic. And you also have something to grab onto if the car is driven by an enthusiastic driver. Well, what I can really appreciate is the fact that the middle row seats are also quite nicely scooped out, and that actually releases very useful knee room. Had these seats not been scooped out, I really think that the knee room would have been compromised. So that's a very intelligent feature, and all in all, this is quite a comfortable car to get in, get out, and the third row is also quite usable. But the middle row could definitely have been more comfortable and there could have been more space. The headrests for the third row are also adjustable, which is a great feature to have. Now, I was driving the Kia Carnival a couple of days back and I was really amazed by how good that car was on the road, and when I took it out in the rough, the ride quality was amazing. So the road manners was amazing and the ride quality was also astonishing, and I cannot but help make comparisons of that car with this one, because this is equally good if not better both on and off the road. The road manners while you're driving on the ECR as well as some really deserted roads was fantastic, and right now as we are in the roughs, as you can see, it's almost gliding over these bad surfaces. So if you're looking for comfort, if you're looking for a fantastic ride quality as well as some pleasure from behind the steering wheel, I think the EMAX7 is a fantastic proposition. So whatever it loses out in terms of the seat width and the seat height, it claws back in terms of what it delivers on the road and off it. Ride quality is amazing, but right now as you see, we are approaching a bump. You have to be careful because the bumper is rather low, and when the car is fully loaded, the 170 mm ground clearance over bad bumps, vicious speed breakers can be a little bit wanting and it may scrape its belly, so you have to be a little bit careful. But for most part, I think the ground clearance is sufficient. What really is amazing is the battery pack on this car. It comes with a 71.8 kilowatt hour battery pack, which is about 72 kilowatt hour, and that endows it with 530 kilometers of specified range, which would translate to over 450 kilometers of range 100 to 0. But typically you would use about 80% of the battery while you're driving because you want to have a reserve, a buffer, and this car would easily give you 400 kilometers of range, which is more than sufficient for you to drive for long hours, and it would already be time for you to take a break. And as I mentioned, if you have a decently powered 60 kilowatt hour charger, you'll be good to go in the next 45 minutes. So while you have a lunch, you'll have the car charged again. Now, as I mentioned, the motor on this car, the controller is slightly noisy. So that's the only complaint that I have with the way this drives. But apart from that, the steering is very well weighted. The tires have very good grip on them. Now, as we drove on these open roads earlier during the day also and now as well, the road manners exhibited by the BYD EMAX7 are absolutely fantastic, and lane change maneuvers are handled rather well. Any other MUV would be a little bit nervous, but this shows fantastic control. So even if you are someone who's rather interested in driving, this is not going to entirely disappoint you. Of course, this is not an enthusiast oriented car, but it has fantastic road manners. Apart from that, if you talk about sheer numbers, this car has 204 PS of peak power and 300 Newton meters of torque, and the 0 to 100 run is finished in a very quick 8.6 seconds, and the top speed also has been kept at a rather generous 180 kilometers per hour. Generally, you'd see that other electric car makers are going to restrict it to a lower limit so that they get better range, but BYD have not done that, and if you want to drive this car enthusiastically, you actually can, which is a fantastic thing. Apart from the road manners, the car is also very well insulated, and even up to speeds of 120 kilometers per hour, you don't have much noise coming in. Just a wee bit of wind noise filtering in, but I think that's acceptable. There is nothing wrong with that. All in all, the only thing that annoys me just a little bit is when you mash the pedal, the torque steer comes in. But if you're driving progressively, if you're using part throttle, it drives beautifully well. Just that when you have all the ADAS functions turned on every single time you have a lane and you're crossing over, or even when you're close to it, the steering keeps on doing its own thing, and that can be a bit of an annoyance. Takes away the fun of driving, and sometimes you do feel that the car is not driving naturally. So if you want to feel how the car really drives, you really have to turn the ADAS functions off to understand how the car is behaving. The intrusive nature of the ADAS functions is felt a little bit more on BYD cars, as I have experienced earlier as well, and I think the ADAS functions are managed a little bit better by the Koreans. Now you also have a smaller battery pack available on this car for a smaller price, and you'll get a 56.4 kilowatt hour battery pack there. Of course, the power will also be less by about 44 PS, and there you'll get about 160 PS. The torque is the same though at 310 Newton meters. The 0 to 100 time there is 10.1 seconds, although the top speed is not restricted, and there also you'll be able to attain top speed of 180 kilometers per hour. The range on the EMAX7 with the smaller battery pack is 420 kilometers. All in all, it's a fantastic car in terms of the way it drives, the range, the suspension, the insulation. And from behind the steering wheel, I really don't have many complaints, especially for it being an MUV. Had it been maybe a sedan or an SUV, I would have wanted it to be even more dynamic, but I'm not complaining because it is a people mover, and for that purpose, it drives rather well. Now in terms of warranty, the EMAX7 gets 8 years or 1,60,000 kilometers of warranty on the battery, 8 years or 1,50,000 kilometers of warranty on motor and motor controller, and 6 years or 1,50,000 kilometers on the DC assembly, high voltage electric control assembly and OBC. You can choose from 4 colors: quartz blue, harbor grey, crystal white and cosmos black. Now by itself, I really think that this car is value for money because it has a really huge battery pack. It can really go long distance. It drives really well, is quite comfortable. Well, if you're looking at it purely from the money perspective, then it's difficult to argue for this car because, as I mentioned before, the XL6 and the Ertiga are cheaper, the Currents is cheaper, and while the Innova is priced at the same point, it will pay for itself in the long run. But if you're someone who's in this for his image, someone who cares for the environment, wants a strictly electric car for his family, a 6/7 seater, then there literally is no alternative to this car, and then this car is for you. So that's that, guys. I really hope that I was able to sum this car up in detail for you, and if you like this video, hit that like button, subscribe to Motoroids, and until next time, this is your friend Amit Changani signing off. Rev hard, rev free, and drive safe.